Hi guys. So in terms of the podcast, we want to hear from you. This is why we've got a comment section. You can get in contact with us on Facebook. You can get in contact with us if you're watching on YouTube, just below in the comment section there. Don't forget to like and subscribe while you're doing it. But we want to hear from you. Do you want more guests? Do you want more humor? Do you want less humor? Do you want more graphs? Do you want more science? Do you want, what topics would you like us to be talking about?
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, more laughter, more in depth into the science, or less in depth into the science.
Yep.
Or they're happy with our boyhood humour or not.
Do you want to hear about our weird conspiracy theories? Do you want to hear about our weird science stuff that's coming up that is just freaking me out that I want to talk about? But we're going to continue giving you the deep dive science on ingredients and on health concerns and issues, as we always have. But would you like some different content? Please let us know in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, or jump onto the Facebook page and leave some comments there, or get in contact through any of our social media media, or even better yet, our website. Aaron, customer service, little pop-up come up there, go, on the podcast, I'd like to hear this. So we want to hear from you.
Yes.
We want to make you happy. It's all that we wanted, isn't it, Steve?
Absolutely.
We just want you to be happy.
Yeah, I shouldn't laugh at that.
Yeah, Steve makes himself happy. Nobody else. Anyway, guys, want to hear from you. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your support. And again, if you can like and subscribe, specifically on YouTube as well too, or on any of the other platforms, that would be great. Thank you. Welcome to the ATP Project. You're with your host, Steve and Jeff. Steve?
Yep.
I'm feeling sad.
Oh, no.
Well, I know, but the funny thing is that it actually stands for Seasonal
Affective Disorder.
Right, which is funny. Is this where the word sad actually comes from? I mean, it would be funny, wouldn't it? But it's funny because it is as it sounds.
Yep.
And what's interesting is that through winter, and look, our northern hemisphere, purveyors of this wonderful podcast and or YouTube. And it's much better to watch us on YouTube, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
Despite the apparent flaws in our aesthetics,
what
Steve.
Flaws? None. Zero flaws. Perfect looks.
Sad.
Yeah.
It's a true syndrome, if you like, which is that people feel bad during winter.
Well, not only that, they actually, it's classified as a major depression.
Right.
So it's quite severe. It affects about 2 to 5% of people, and it's weird, this one, because it's a little bit sexist. A lot of diseases are sexist.
That's disgusting.
I know.
Are they racist as well too, Steve?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
What?
Because it affects countries further away from the equator.
Wow.
So it is racist and sexist.
Gosh, it discriminates.
It discriminates. It absolutely discriminates.
Wow.
But so does multiple sclerosis. The further you're away from the equator, the more MS you have.
Right.
Another brain disorder.
Is it to do with this? I mean, immediately, Steve,
Yep.
I just go, it's got to do with vitamin D in the sun.
It's got to do with vitamin D in the sun, but it's way more complex than that.
Oh, well,
Because why
I'm
do
glad,
we-
because otherwise it would be a really short podcast, right? Be like, oh, that was quick.
Because there's weird questions like, why do young women get this way more than anyone else?
Okay, well, that would have to do with estrogen and hormones, surely.
Somewhat, but also polymorphisms in one of their serotonergic genes and one of their SNPs, they call it.
Right.
Singular
So
nucleotide.
polymorphism is just the expression of genes, is that right,
expression
Steve?
of genes,
Yep.
absolutely.
Yep.
And they've got a weird one there in the serotonergic pathway.
Okay.
So that's one reason.
Right.
But also another one is that they could be what they call an artifact in the literature, which means that men get it as well, depression and any sort of depression, but they don't report it. You know what men are like. They
Right.
Yeah, they sort of go, oh yeah, I'm fine.
Keep a stiff upper lip, as they say, right?
There's weird chromosomes like you can have a Fragile X syndrome.
Fragile X syndrome.
Yeah.
That sounds like a good name for a punk band. Fragile X.
Oh, it's a pretty common one. It affects, women cop it pretty badly. Like they finish menses around the age of 35 to 40.
Menses.
Menstruation.
Oh, menstruation.
Yeah.
Right.
So they go into a premature menopause, and men, a lot of men have a lot of neurological disorders, like we have autism. And
they call andropause around that age. Is that the thing?
Our andropause is not affected in this condition,
Right.
but
Okay.
we do get problems like it's one of the number one genetic links with ADHD, for example,
Right.
and autism. So there's problems with our genes, but in this case, having double X chromosomes a problem with depression.
Right.
Yeah, and there's other reasons too, like for example, women with their double X chromosomes have a higher amount of immune activity.
Yes.
So they have a
You
higher
said
amount.
that. So women typically have higher levels of autoimmune,
Yes.
right? As opposed to men that don't,
That's
because
right.
our immune system isn't as good.
Not as good.
No.
It's another sexist disease.
No.
It's funny because I was talking to the girls downstairs on should we do a podcast on what affects men and women. Very interesting. And it's funny because everyone else I was talking downstairs, won't mention names, but a few other people said, oh, that's very interesting. You know, they didn't know that women got more Alzheimer's and men get more cancers and
Yep.
all this sort of stuff. It's just related to
Biology.
Biology, yeah.
Yep.
Oh, interesting. But in this case, of course, unfortunately, women suffer more depression and more seasonal affective disorder depression,
Okay.
which is another one too. Now, the reasons are there's lots of reasons.
Okay, can we mention the vitamin D? I mean, surely,
Yeah,
let's just start at the
vitamin D.
most
We will
obvious one.
start with the most
Okay.
obvious one.
Yeah.
Okay, vitamin D is an interesting one because we know, and this is a paper, and I'll read the article here, Vitamin D and Depression, a critical appraisal of the evidence and future direction. So this covers all depressions.
Mm-hmm.
And the conclusion of the study, and this was published 2019, it said serum vitamin Ds were inversely correlated with clinical depression. You know what inverse means?
Yes.
It means for the people who don't listening, they go high vitamin D, low depression. Low vitamin D, high depression, the inverse correlation. So that means that is a marker. Now, the people who are listening, correlation doesn't mean causation.
No, that's true.
So
And there's a lot there.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I like that old saying, if it looks like a duck and it smells like a duck, it's probably a duck.
Yep.
But it doesn't necessarily mean it is a duck.
And in this case, it's actually not a duck because what we know is that the major treatment for seasonal affective disorder is to sit inside a light box.
Right.
Yeah.
What type of light box?
A white light.
like
Like fluoros, but LEDs.
But that doesn't have anything to do with vitamin D.
Correct, but it does cure it
Why?
because the light inhibits the enzyme called MAO in the brain.
So this has to do with light in the eye?
Yep.
So if somebody was blind, would they still get the same benefit?
No, because
Yeah.
light affects MAO. Now, MAO stands for monoamine oxidase.
Yes. And what
Now,
does that do against it?
That, put simply, it breaks down monoamines,
Yep.
which is amino acids with just one amine group, such as serotonin.
Right.
So if you are breaking down serotonin too fast,
Mm-hmm.
you can become depressed.
So can wearing sunglasses have an impact on this?
Absolutely.
So again, because you're diminishing the amount of
Light.
that you're getting into your eye.
Yeah, exactly. So in this case, vitamin D, it's interesting, but it's also light. And the gold standard treatment for this disease is light. And that shows in a paper, I'll come up later, shows a very big beneficial effect in the body. So what light does is it slows down the MAO. So if you slow down MAO, you get more serotonin.
Yeah.
And there are drugs out there called MAO inhibitors.
Right. Stevo,
Yes,
you know that they've always called me the black sheep at ATP?
absolutely, because you're from New Zealand.
No, because I am black sheep. I'm barking mad. In fact, for 6 years, Steve, we've worked it out that I have been like a mad scientist trying to create the world's best bar. And it is finally here.
It's beautiful.
It is.
a
Now,
thing of beauty.
we've had some problems. Well, my Lord, we've had some problems, but it is launching through Woolworths in late June, so look out for it. It'll eventually be going through all of our retail partner stores as well too, but it's going to be available at the beginning through Woolworths, and there's like a sucking down everything that we can possibly make. People are here at 2 o'clock in the morning making these bars. We are trying to get them out. We're also going to be selling them obviously on our website as well too, and eventually you're going to see them everywhere. They are my legacy. Steve, it's something that I've been passionate about. When I first took a bite into a protein bar back in the 90s, there was actually a big Masashi gold bar. I mean, this thing was actually like a cake and had amino acids in it. And look, much respect to everyone else out there in the marketplace, but we feel that we've got something different. We feel that we've got something that it's jelly-like, so it's totally different texture. We don't use any preservatives. We don't use any artificial colors or flavors in there. It's something that is high in fiber. I mean, it does say on there, not for children under the age of 15 unless with supervision, because it is considered to be a formulated sports food. I do give it to my 8-year-old under supervision. He sucks them down. He absolutely loves them.
Nice. High protein, low sugar.
20 grams of
chocolate-coated.
collagen
I know.
protein.
What sort of collagen protein?
Well, Body Balance, king of collagen, that's what we call ourselves, Steve. And I think you've got the 9 grams of fibre in there. We're keeping the sugars really low. I think it's around about that sort of 5.5, 6 grams of sugar per serve as well too. Great as a bit of a treat, but something that doesn't have a lot of sugar alcohols in there, like maltitol and sorbitol specifically. And we've done that, Steve, because we want to look after your guts.
Yes.
We want to make sure that you can have one of these bars and you don't feel like you need to rush off to the toilet and do an abomination in there.
Abomination's a good word.
Abomination of, whatever it is in the toilet.
And they taste great. They're absolutely gluten-free. They're a terrific protein source. And as you said, they're available in Woolies in late June. I mean, Woolworths.
Yep, and nearly dairy-free. I mean, I think there's trace amounts of dairy in there, so if you're lactose intolerant, you shouldn't have a problem. We had to put that in there because the chocolate that we have is made on a line that has, trace amounts, right?
Yeah.
But look, give them a try. They're available. There's 3 flavours to try. Toffee, which is a rich, decadent toffee-style flavour. My favourite, Steve, changes between the chocolate, the Belgian chocolate, which is quite sweet and it's got a nice vanilla note through it, and then we've got the chocolate orange, which is the surprise one, Steve.
I like
it's
that one.
It's got a orange essence in it. It's light and it's beautiful. And again, if you're looking for a little treat that's actually got high quality collagen in it, give it a try. And again, let us know what you think.
No artificial sweeteners like sucralose.
No.
It's naturally sweetened. So this is beautiful tasting, choc-coated too, and they're beautiful, rich chocolate. I love it.
Yep.
They taste great.
Anyway, so if you're looking for them, have a look at Woolworths. Jump online to atpscience.com. Let us know what you think. And this is the first of many flavours. And then we've got some new bars coming out, hopefully early next year in 2023 as well too, that are going to rock your socks on that as well too.
Can't wait.
All right. Thanks, guys. In New Zealand, when I was growing up in Christchurch, and it's funny because I was explaining this to my boys, because here in Brisbane at the moment, in Australia, we're actually going through a bit of a cold snap.
Yeah.
And my boys up in Brisbane, and they're freezing. They're going, "How cold is it, Dad?" And I'm looking at it, and it's like, "Oh, it's down to like 11 degrees at the moment." And I'm hearing people in Sydney and Melbourne and other parts of the world going, "That's not cold."
No.
I remember cycling 30 minutes, 40 minutes to my school from where I lived in New Zealand when I was 11, 12.
Yeah.
And I'd have a light on my bike. I'd be leaving. It would still be dark, I think. Don't shoot me if I'm wrong with this. Like still 8:30 in the morning in winter. It's still dark. Like really dark.
Yeah.
I remember I ran over a dead hedgehog. And I'm not kidding.
Hang on, you didn't kill it, did you?
No, I got a puncture on my tyre though. After about 10 minutes on my way to school, and then it started sleeting. I just remember I was very miserable that day. But the sun would also then set. There's a point to this. The sun would then set like really early.
Yeah.
Like, I'm thinking by the time it was like, 4:30, it was like black. Like it was dark, right? Like 5 o'clock. So the amount of sunlight, and especially if you had a grey, overcast day, and we got a few of those, you'd be sitting there, you'd be not getting much light. Same in England, I imagine, as well too.
Oh, yeah.
So for countries, Scandinavia or, South America right down the bottom, the amount of light during winter is very, very reduced.
Absolutely.
So obviously, that's going to cause a problem.
It is a big problem. And also we have, and this is not a problem, but this is a factor in this. It's the sun smart factor. We've got to keep out of the sun.
Well, just keep out of the sun during the middle of the day.
Yeah.
Right?
But even in winter,
right,
the middle of the day is quite a safe sun, relative to the middle of summer.
Yeah.
Because if you think it's lower in the sky, it's less UV. So our behaviour should change in summer and winter.
I think sometimes, obviously, the messaging that happens with this is that they're looking at one viewpoint, which is skin cancer.
Yep.
Which, look, if anybody knows about skin cancer, I know about skin cancer. I've had a truck ton of it. In fact, I've actually got one on the top of my ear right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Basal cell, is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, it looks like. From here.
Yeah.
2 metres away.
Yeah,
it's a basal cell.
Thanks, Steve. And again, the Scottish skin and, coming over here and lying out in the sun for too long, it's, silly. But this is a problem when you're just looking at it from one point of view. And absolutely, all of those things are true. And I'm saying we shouldn't be silly about being sun exposure, but you do need some. And I think this is the same as the germ hypothesis in England with the children, where everything was antibacterial wipes, everything was protect my little baby from germs and all the rest of it. And they ended up with compromised immune systems that couldn't handle anything because they were like weaklings that had never had any resistance training.
Yeah.
You can't expect them to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like that Novocaine. Is it Novocaine?
Yeah.
That they have in The Princess Bride, and he drinks it.
Novocaine?
And yeah. Because he got tolerance because he had been drinking it, right? So he didn't die when he drank it.
Oh,
it's the same
okay.
thing, right?
Yeah.
So you need to be able to challenge your immune system and challenge these things. So anyway, having said that, you need exposure to the sun, but when you do it and for how long you do it's really important.
It's really important. And then papers like this one, I'll read the title out again, and this sort of says it all. And it's a paper and it's titled "Insufficient Sun Exposure Has Become a Real Public Health Problem." That's the title of the paper.
What does it say it again, please?
It says insufficient sun exposure has become a real public health problem.
Well, when we're slapping ourselves with all of the sunblock, wearing long clothes and hats and stay out of the sun and all the rest of it, that's great. But they need to say, but guys, it is important that early in the morning and maybe late in the afternoon that you get some exposure, even during summer, because otherwise, again, this is going to lead to it. And certainly during winter, people just probably aren't thinking about it.
Well, in the last decade, and I'll read this, and this is a stat from the paper, its lack of sun has killed about 1%. Actually, it's 0.1%. I just did the maths wrong. 0.1%.
I was going to say, holy cow, Steve. I'm just thinking people are being going to drop.
It's killed 340,000 in the US.
How's my math?
Yeah.
Come on, give me some props for that.
Yeah, it's bloody good. And 500,000 people in Europe actually die per year.
In Europe?
Yeah, per year.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that would be from everything from what?
Oh, well, it's due, and I'll read this, I'll quote it now. It's an increased incidence of breast cancer, colorectal cancer, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's disease, autism, asthma, type 1 diabetes, and, myopathy doesn't kill people, short-sightedness. But that's because the lack of sun is contributing to all those diseases.
Wow.
I mean, you got to remember that sunlight, particularly vitamin D in this case, protects against a wide variety of cancers, particularly colon cancer, lymphatic cancers, breast cancer, and prostate cancer.
So strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't it strange? And again, we just think, if you think exposure to sun, you think cancer.
Yep, incredible.
But, yeah, anyway.
So it's absolutely
vital that you get some exposure.
Yeah, so that's mainly due to vitamin D, but also it's to do with the sunlight increasing nitric oxide.
Well, and I was about to say, Steve, because you can't just supplement with vitamin D and not get exposure to the sun.
Correct. Right? You can't. It doesn't cut it because you won't produce the nitric oxide, which is the blood vessels in the heart.
But if you sat under a white light and you got vitamin D, so in other words, let's say that you were down in the bowels of the earth, right? But you had white light and you had vitamin D. Would that be enough?
Yes, it would be. It would cover it because that's what they're using to treat people with SAD and a few other things. But the best thing to do, really, is
you get both. You get 2 for 1. You get the light and you get the vitamin D.
Yeah,
but again, you just got to be careful about how long you go out there, what the UV index is. I mean, I know better than most. So,
it's quite incredible. So there's lots of data on this, but the nitric oxide one was interesting because I was unaware that sunlight was involved in the production of nitric oxide. But so it's very, very good for the cardiovascular system. Nitric oxide is the little gas released inside the arteries that dilate the blood vessels. So going in the sun reduces blood pressure because nitric oxide dilates the blood vessels,
there you go,
which reduces one of the risk factors for heart disease. So imagine if let's kill 15 birds with one stone. Let's say you go for
That sounds a bit vicious, Steve.
Yeah, I know. Let's do it.
No.
Let's say you live in
Look at him. He's salivating. And let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's say you live in a really dark place like Christchurch.
Well, where you kill 15 birds with one stone sounds like a dark place, Steve.
The ultimate thing you could do there is at lunchtime, when it's as bright as it's going to get, hopefully it's a sunny day, you get out in the sun and you go for that run.
Around Hagley Park?
Yeah. And I know the big park there. Yeah,
beautiful.
I've actually ran around there years ago. So many years ago. And so that means you'll get the sun, you'll get the cardiovascular fitness. So you're killing. Well, there's just two. I've got to be 15, but two birds with one stone.
Yep.
So you're actually covering off all your health benefits.
And even if you can't run to start with, just a brisk walk would be a good idea. Yeah.
Get out in the sun.
Do what you can.
Get out in the sun.
Nice.
So the treatment for seasonal affective disorder is actually just being exposed to bright light, which is kind of strange, but kind of useful, because what they're doing is, because people have been taken away from the sun, as you correctly point out, skin cancers, everything, and probably we're probably gone too far. You know,
it's funny, right?
Yeah,
because you go, why so dark? And then you go, man, that person's got a sunny disposition.
Yes, that's right.
Isn't it? I mean, like, there's truisms and there's sorts of things that we say, right?
There is
I mean,
absolute
but there's more to it than, anyway.
But you're absolutely right. And this is a paper published, I'll read the title again, Brain Monoamine Oxidase, that's that thing we were talking about before, in seasonal affective disorder and treatment with bright light therapy. So what they found was that the bright light just knocked out MAO.
Cool.
Which, remember, there's Mayo inhibitor drugs which are used as an antidepressant.
Yeah.
So does light.
Wow.
So does bright light. A bit cheaper, a bit safer, and you get vitamin
D. If you get outside into the sun, it's free.
Now, you know what else? You know how we've got, I won't mention any names, but there's lots of supplements that can improve your thyroid.
Yes.
Guess what else can improve your thyroid?
Sun.
Yep. Just go. Yeah, it does. It's doing everything today. Going out in the sun is a great treatment for your thyroid. It is a beautiful paper here. It basically just light in this case. What they did was they found people that had SAD, had low thyroid.
Yeah, right.
And you can measure it with TSH. Now,
I know you're not a huge fan of that, but it's a basic marker.
It's a basic marker.
Yeah, thyroid stimulating hormone.
The higher TSH, the lower your thyroid.
Right.
So what we're aiming to do is lower TSH, and that improves your thyroid.
Right.
That makes sense.
Because it's pumping out more, kind of like insulin in a way, and it's not working, so that you've got a higher marker, right?
Correct.
Same as
exactly
insulin. If you've got really high levels of insulin, typically you're going to be having the side effects of that, which is typically weight gain.
Correct. So they treated these people with just bright light, and their TSH dropped dramatically.
Wow.
From 1.71 to 1.37. Now, the title is a bit of a giveaway of how long it is, but guess how long this treatment took?
7 days.
Exactly 7 days.
Huh.
Have you been reading this?
No, I didn't.
Thing? 1 week.
People won't believe me. They just go, there's no way Jeff's that awesome. I am.
Oh, yeah.
I actually am, Steve.
Now I'm going to read the title.
Okay.
Decreasing TSH levels in patients with SAD, responding to 1 week of bright light therapy.
There you go.
Once a day. Just exposed in this light, in this case.
Huh.
Isn't that amazing?
It is.
So you want to boost your thyroid, go out in the sun.
Yeah.
And if you go for a walk, you'll boost it further.
So, and the funny thing is, it's this multiple layering on effect.
Yeah.
I mean, again, if you're feeling sad, if you're a bit overweight, get out, go for a walk in the sun.
Yep.
You just G-string and just go for it.
G-string, yeah. I do that all the time anyway. It's just normal Saturday night for me.
Saturday night?
Saturday then, all right. I wear it all day. I wear it all day.
I think you're doing it wrong, Steve. Yep.
Now, I've got a graph here for those people who are watching on YouTube.
Do you call it a graph?
Yeah, or graph.
I thought it was a graph.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Is it a graph or a graph?
A graph or
do
graph?
Australians say graph? Do you say graph or graph?
I don't know.
I just say graph.
Do you say graph?
Yeah.
Steffi Graph, yeah.
It's graph.
Do you say Steffi Graph?
I say Steffi graph.
Oh,
There you go.
there you go. Don't know.
Yeah.
But we've got a graph or a graph. Because
Do you say giraffe or giraffe?
the English language is weird.
Oh, this
Australian
licorice
English.
tea is obviously making me go a bit crazy.
It's
Sorry about
great,
that.
isn't it?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because Steve and I were just talking. I'm not feeling great.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm sad. Maybe you got the
You
sads.
could be.
Maybe.
2% of the population have it, 1 in 50.
Well, anyway, I am feeling a little bit run down. Licorice tea.
That'll pip
I
you
can't
up.
believe that we couldn't sell this stuff, Steve.
Licorice,
So freaking awesome.
licorice
Yeah,
is...
I tell you what, nobody wanted it.
Licorice actually is great because it blocks 11-hydroxysteroid beta dehydrogenase, which I know.
That's easy for you to say.
It is easy,
Yeah.
but that's the thing that detoxifies cortisol. So it actually gives you a mild pep up stress. And
I'm not taking it for that though.
No.
I'm taking it because I'm not feeling 100%. And licorice, why is licorice good for colds and flu, Steve?
Oh, it's because it's antiviral.
Antiviral.
Yeah. It's potently antiviral.
And this is the thing, we're coming into flu season down here as well too.
Yeah.
I mean, mate, that's a whole immunity podcast. Did we do one on that already?
Oh,
I don't know.
probably.
Yeah.
Probably done immunity.
But licorice, reishi, you can use shiitake as well too. Andrographis. We did.
Yeah,
because we
that's
spoke
right.
about
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah, we did.
That
That wasn't
all
even
those
that
things
long
are
ago.
awesome. No, I think it was like last week, wasn't it? Bloody hell.
Last week.
A week in ATP is like 10 years.
That's
seriously.
hilarious.
Anyhow.
It's just hilarious. Okay, so here's a graph
Yep.
for the people out there. And what they did was and this is an older paper, so this is published. It's called Blood Serotonin, Serum Melatonin and Light Therapy in Healthy Subjects and Patients with Depression. So what they found was, and you can see from this graph here that's highlighted, it shows you that the people that had, when they were baseline, they were down here, and when they had the light therapy, the serotonin just jumped up all the way, 24 hours.
Wow.
It just jumped up across the entire day, night, it just rose.
Wow.
So if you want to boost serotonin,
Yep.
get out in the light.
Yep.
And it's also very good for melatonin. It slightly increased that, but not dramatically.
Yeah,
but
that'll help with sleeping,
it does.
obviously.
Yeah, they both spike at night, so there was no real definite, so it didn't adversely affect melatonin.
That's great.
So it's getting a little bit like, why don't we just get out in the sun more, type of thing. But there's more to it than that, because thyroid.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll boost your thyroid. So
Yeah.
again, even if you want to lose weight.
And a sluggish thyroid, Steve.
Yeah.
Hands and extremity will be cold. Brittle hair.
Yep.
What are some of the
Thinning
eyebrows?
of the outside third of the eyebrows.
Do I have a problem with that?
No, yours are bushy ass.
Shut up, Steve. I'm a bit sensitive about it. No, I'm just kidding.
No,
They're bushy. I know. I haven't got a
bushy.
problem with It's just like, look at
Bloody
those
awesome.
things, mate. Take a whippersnipper to them.
You also get constipated too.
No, I'm not.
No, good.
No.
Oh, your thyroid seems fine.
I get plenty of fibre. But I think in terms of thyroid, the other one that people talk about is increased weight gain.
Correct.
Yeah.
Unexplained weight gain. So, like, if you're sitting there and you're sort of eating your normal foods and everything like that, and if you're going to McDonald's and you're putting on weight, of course.
Yeah.
But if it's unexplained and you're feeling a bit low and lethargic, depression is very common in people with low thyroid. So, I mean, or look, let's say you're misdiagnosed. Let's say you've got low thyroid and they're treating you for SAD and you go out in the sun, it'll still improve it.
That's right. Yeah. You're as you like to say, you vicious bastard, you're killing 15 birds with one
15
stone.
birds with one
That's
stone.
a horrible image.
Oh, no, but isn't it just an image? It's a memorable image, is what I'm trying to say.
It's like Pythagoras slapping his students when he made a very important point. Did you know that? To
What,
get them
did
to
he?
remember it, yeah.
Yeah.
He'd say something very, very important, and then he literally would slap them across the face.
So he said h squared equals a squared plus b squared, and if they didn't remember that, slap them across the face.
Yeah.
So the hypotenuse is the square root of 2. If they're that's
You're geeking out on me, Steve. I don't know.
That's Pythagoras' theorem. Is that
All I
if-
can remember
if
is there was
you've
a
got
Pythagoras cube, like the Rubik's Cube. Do you remember that one?
Really?
Yeah, and it was like a... Do you remember that one? Yeah, anyway.
Oh, geez, I missed that one.
Yeah.
So if you've got a right angle triangle and one side's 1, the other side's 1, the hypotenuse, the long side is square root of 2.
Nobody
Or
cares, Steve.
1.41. Yeah, no one cares about hypotenuse.
No.
All right, so there we go. So that graph shows clearly we're boosting serotonin across the board just by going out in the light. And imagine if you added exercise with that.
Yep.
So there's diets that actually can make you anxious, and there's diets that actually help with your depression.
Right.
Have a guess. You guess what sort of diet makes you anxious and depressed?
Restricted calories?
Yeah, that does.
Yeah.
But
Makes me sad.
Is it high in fats, proteins, or carbohydrates makes you anxious?
Oh, definitely carbohydrates.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. It's quite funny because I know that there was some what they call cohort studies on this where people have consumed that and they've felt better. So I was looking for what they call interventional studies where they gave people high carbohydrate diets and measured their brain chemistry and everything.
Yeah.
It didn't pass ethics. They couldn't. It was unethical to give someone a high carbohydrate diet.
Wow.
Yeah, it's unethical, so they had to give it to rats. They had to feed them rats a high carbohydrate diet, which is what most Australians eat every day, but it didn't pass the ethics in a lot of universities. So they gave them to rats, and the rats became anxious and depressed. See, because you can measure rats' brains quite easily by slicing and dicing after they
That's horrible, isn't it, really?
but yeah, I just found it funny that you couldn't get anyone just to eat a bowl of ice cream in this study because it's unethical to give someone a food that's quite bad for them. So the problem with this is in winter, guess what people crave? And when you're
Carbohydrates.
depressed, yeah. Because when you eat carbohydrate-rich foods, you spike a hormone called insulin, for those who aren't listening. Now, insulin is a very big growth hormone, anabolic, it builds your muscles and everything. So it takes amino acids out of your blood, puts it in the muscles, builds muscle, right?
Yeah.
Guess which amino acids left in the blood? tryptophan.
Ah,
'Cause it doesn't go in the muscles.
of course.
That's why you won't find it in
And
collagen.
you feel
yeah.
happy but tired.
Yeah, you feel happy but tired because all you've got is tryptophan in the blood and there's no competition to get into the brain. So it floods the brain.
Yeah.
And so you feel happy after eating carbohydrates.
Ah,
Yeah.
no wonder
It-
Thanksgiving's such a happy time in the States because turkey's really high in tryptophan too.
Very much so.
What else is high in tryptophan?
Oh, eating
Milk?
meats and fish and those sorts of things. Eggs.
Yeah.
Particularly meats and fish and eggs, those sort of things. Mostly animal proteins. But tryptophan, therefore, just floods into the brain, so you feel great short term.
Short term.
So you become addicted to it a little bit.
That's
You
what
know?
happened to a friend of mine.
With the carbohydrates.
Yeah, with ice cream specifically.
Oh,
He
yeah.
had a very severe a reation to it. He knew it wasn't good for him because he then it was all mucousy and all the rest of it as well too. But yeah, he had almost like an allergic reaction. That's why he likened it, but I don't know.
Well, if you get an allergic reaction, you release adrenaline and you become addicted to the adrenaline.
Ah.
It's like people who, like me, who go running and you can become addicted
Runner's
to
high.
the runner's high thing.
Yeah, never got there.
I don't know if I'm addicted to it, but it's still tough work getting out in the morning, going for those runs on the cold mornings. But I have to admit, I like the feeling when you're out there after about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because your joints,
Yeah.
53. So, but once you're out there and you're actually, with these carbohydrates, they make you feel good, which is not a good thing. Because it's temporary.
It's comfort food, right?
It is. And have you ever heard it being called comfort food?
Of course.
Yeah. So all those rich, pastory, saucy sort of, those rich carbohydrate meals people crave, chocolates, it's very bad for you. It's very bad for your brain because it gives you serotonin. People go, hang on, you just told me, slamming they're in their cars going, didn't you tell me serotonin's good? Yes, the correct way to boost serotonin, not the drug way. I'm going to call carbohydrate-rich foods a drug because that's how they affect the brain. But there is another way we can affect the brain positively. And they actually gave this to humans.
Okay. How?
This is interesting. This is a paper called, and the title says it all, an almond-based, and I'll explain why. Based low-carbohydrate diet improves depression and glycometabolism in patients with type 2 diabetes through modulation of the gut microbiome.
Well, there you go.
In a randomised controlled trial.
And what's interesting, Steve, and I know
Yep.
I've started to give up bath milk.
Have you?
Yeah.
Ah.
So I'm using almond and macadamia. When I have a coffee, I have it on macadamia and milk if I can get it. Have you ever tried macadamia milk for your coffee?
No, I don't drink coffee, so I'm a weirdo. I don't drink coffee, but
It's awesome because it's creamy.
I'm not sure. Because I don't like almond milk because it's a bit sort of watery.
And soy, no, I'm not.
Nah.
I mean, soy's fine for some percentage of the population, typically the female percentage of the population.
About 50% females.
So, Steve, soy,
Yeah.
men, women. Why would you not use soy if you're a man? Because I know that there is an impact on the isoflavones for inhibiting testosterone. Is that true or false?
It's true. It mildly inhibits it. And
Mildly?
Yeah.
But if you're using something like tofu or that sort of stuff, a little bit's okay, right?
A little bit's fine, yeah. It's dose dependent, so you don't want to have too much of it.
Yeah.
And that can be problematic. But if you're having too much of it, it can be problematic for some men.
But for women, soy with the isoflavones specifically can actually help with hormone regulation.
They can. Now the reason being is because let's say you're a woman and you've got all these estrogen receptors and you're low in estrogen. So say you're
Postmenopausal. Yes.
So these phytoestrogens like genistin and
Like what?
Genistin is the most common one. That's the isoflavone. It's an estrogen-like compound in soy.
Yep.
It actually weakly binds those estrogen receptors to give you a little bit of an estrogen boost.
Really?
Yeah, if your receptors are vacant.
Okay.
Now, if they're full and you've got too much estrogen, they can still occupy those receptors and, in fact, down-regulate estrogen because it fills up the receptor in powerful estrogen.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So in other words, because I was just about to say then, so soy for menopausal women and all that is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
But for younger women, maybe not so much. No, it actually sounds like soy is actually pretty good for women because it's almost adaptogenic.
It's adaptogenic because
Wow.
it regulates the effects of estrogen in the body. It doesn't change the levels, and this is where the confusion was because you measure them in women, estrogen stays the same.
I've always been like a anti-soy boy. Like that?
That's a great one.
Anti-soy boy.
Yeah.
Man. Anti-soy man. Shut up.
If you have too much soy, you might go back.
You might turn into a soy boy,
that's right.
But I think in terms of for women, like so for men, okay.
Yeah,
Look, if you're a vegan or what have you as well too, so long as obviously, and what's too much soy for a man?
Oh, if you have it in milk, that's fine. You're going to have to drink a lot of it because there's
how much? Because this is the question, right? Because I remember, and again, I'm going back to legacy days when I was selling in the supplement den, and it'd be like, no, don't even look at soy because you'll get boobs and turn into a female.
Yeah.
Like literally, like, it was that bad.
Yeah,
right? The
I know.
rhetoric was terrible.
It is.
And then someone said, well, what about tofu? And I'm like, oh, that's actually a really good point.
Yeah, well, fermented soy is good for you. Too much milk. What we used to limit people to was about a cup or 250 mils of soy a day.
Right. What about soy isolate, soy protein?
Depends on how it's refined.
Right.
And you can get actually soy isoflavone concentrates.
Yeah.
Which are, you've got to be a little bit cautious with those with men.
Yep.
We give that for menopause or for women with hormonally positive estrogen cancers.
Right. Okay.
Because it does block that out.
But a little bit of soy is okay for guys.
A little bit of soy is fine.
But don't freak out. But but for women, actually beneficial.
It can be beneficial.
Man.
But if you've got healthy hormone levels and you're a woman,
Sure.
it may not be because you're going to reducing the effects of the estrogen because it's going to bind to those receptors.
Right.
And the potent estrogen, estradiol, estrone, estriol aren't going to bind to those receptors. So if you've got too much estrogen, good. Too little, good. The right amount, weirdly, you don't want to change it.
So, that's interesting. All right, sorry. So milk. So we were talking about milk being bad.
Well, a cup of milk,
cow's
soy milk. Yeah. Oh, cow's milk.
Yeah.
Yeah, cow's milk. It has literally got actual hormones in it.
And blood and pus.
Yeah.
And people get freaked out. Oh, this is disgusting, but it's true.
It's funny. Yeah, it's got testosterone in it. It's got estrogen in it because it's from a mammal that's lactating.
Yep.
So it's
But
literally...
they feed it crap tons of stuff to make it lactate more.
Of course.
So these poor cows are just sitting there just getting... So they go,
Milked, literally.
yeah, but they're given drugs that make them produce more, and that creates a lot of mastitis and stuff like that. Now, again, there could be legacy. There might be people listening to this going, hang on, no, there's been advancements, and I'm prepared to be wrong.
Yeah.
But and that's why I've always gone for your bath milk, and like, as I said, I used to drink Jersey cow milk. It's funny because I have it now, and it tastes like cow. Like, really, it does. It's like so cowy. Compared to the refined, it's the same thing as what happened with grapes and what happened with our fruit and our food. It used to be bitter. We used to have rinds and seeds. Now we've got this frankenfood that has been so refined down. It's almost like lollies. It's the same thing with milk. Milk is homogenized. It's pasteurized. It's synthetic almost. I mean, in terms of it's not how it used to be. All of the natural microbes and all the rest of it are completely gone.
Yeah.
And that's not the way that we were supposed to have it. So when I talk to you about bath milk, which is unhomogenized, unpasteurized, or when I'd go back to New Zealand, I'd happily have cow milk because it's natural.
Yeah.
But and this is the problem, even with regards to grains and other things like that as well too, Steve. And I appreciate you hate grains, but the grains that, not using the dwarf wheat and all the rest of it, but actually using whole grains where the whole, the kernel was there and it would be ground up and you'd get everything. Like there was benefits in that,
Absolutely.
Steve. There was. But now
polyphenols.
But now the polyphenols and that would sort of help to regulate and keep things on track. But our food is not food anymore.
No, and we don't exercise like we used to. And I mean, take your farmer 200-300 years ago when he was walking behind a cow's ass all day. That's what they do. That's how you plough a field, isn't it?
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, you walk behind I was going to say a bull's ass. Well, I don't know what it is. Whatever you're pulling the plough back down.
I wasn't.
So there's lots of activity.
Yeah.
And no one had cars, and they were manual labour jobs. So it's all changed. So now a lot of people are very inactive, and they have very refined. So those two combined activities make grains, unless they're the good ones and you're exercising a lot, a little bit untenable in today's society. That's my view on that one.
Well, I mean, a lot of the research that we're showing, Steve, is showing an over dependence on carbohydrates has other effects on the gut, on thyroid, on a whole heap of other things that probably never considered before. Which is why, and again, I keep coming back to it, I have no problem, and I totally get it. And again, Jake, my PT works on tracking calories, and I get it. It's great, and it works because but it's only one part of the equation for overall health. You've got to look at your polyphenols, and you've got to look at the source of the carbohydrates. And as I say, make it fit your macros. Incorporate, whether you're going to do keto. Keto by default, I guess, if you're getting things like avocado and you're getting, nuts to an extent, and you're getting natural, forms of fat into your diet, salmon and other stuff like that, great. And that limits carbohydrates, which is typically removing a lot of refined, over-processed foods out of your diet.
Yep, and that's what this paper showed was very good for depression was the low carbohydrate diet with almonds. And the reason why they used almonds is because if you think of an almond, it's got that brown stuff on it.
Yeah.
That's very, very rich in
blanched.
Yeah. Well, they didn't use blanched ones in this one. They used that because it's got all the polyphenols, so it modified the gut microbiome dramatically to improve their depression, because that's where most of your serotonin hangs out in your gut.
It's the same as peanuts, right? It's the skin. That's the good part. With the almonds, I know that they said a small, like mid-morning, mid-afternoon, also had an appetite suppressant effect.
Yeah, it does.
You'd get a little bit of fat. You'd also get some amino acids and some protein.
And the polyphenols.
And the polyphenols as well too. So actually almonds pretty good.
Very good for you. And so this study showed that by modifying the gut microbiome, the main bacteria in the gut that increased was Roseburia, which is a bug that really drives up serotonin.
Right.
So it's a really, really great study. So a lower carbohydrate diet, yes, they did this in type 2 diabetics because these were the sicker of the lot with depression, but it very much dramatically improves depression across the board. If you have a low carbohydrate diet and you have a polyphenol-rich diet. In this case, they use almonds because it's, they're quite thick, the polyphenols in them, the brown coating. So really good study. So you can see the contrast between the high and low carbohydrate diets there for the brain. Very, very good. You take it to the extreme, and you mentioned the ketogenic diet. That's extremely good for diseases of the brain too, like epilepsy. It was used in the 20s for epilepsy and still is to this very day for refractory epilepsy.
Wow.
Yeah. So really, really good diet is to... So you can see a pattern forming here. Get out in the sun, do your exercise, eat well, check thyroid levels, make sure you get enough bright light in the light there. Check your vitamin D status because that's associated with depression.
Yep.
It's very good for all sorts of other things. We're just talking about depression today. But you can see there's a big pattern forming here with seasonal affective disorder. It's just a terrible thing that affects 2 to 3% of the population. And the weird thing about this one is that it's a type of depression that literally relieves when you get into spring.
Yeah, right.
And that's how you know it's not depression.
And has it got anything other than exposure to more light? Is that pretty much it?
No, they use all sorts of drugs to treat it.
Oh, no, but I'm talking about why it alleviates during spring.
Yeah, absolutely. Because they understand that if it's relieved by the season, then it's caused by the season.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's the interesting thing about this seasonal affective disorder. And often, and let's take England or Christchurch, they can't get out in the sun because you might have a indoor job all day. So you've really got to make the best of it. And that's why they use light therapy as what they call the gold standard.
Yeah, right.
But there's a whole lot of syndrome going on here. Why do women get it more? And that's because of they have different genetics. They have more inflammation, better immune system, and that's great. Except what happens is when you got inflammation, you take tryptophan and turn it into quinolinic acid down the
Tryptophan steal. Yeah.
And down that pathway away from serotonin.
Yeah.
So women are more susceptible to this condition than others, and particularly younger women because they've got more primed immune system. So it's a big syndrome going on here, and often the younger women are having more carbohydrates in their diet. So and thyroid, they're also more susceptible to thyroid disorders. So it's really quite an interesting syndrome that is probably underdiagnosed too. A big Cochrane review done on recently, 2019, talked about the treatments for it. It was light therapy, but you know what? You know what they said in here. You're going to love this. If you don't want to use light therapy, MAO drugs. I mean, why would you? All right, I'll put my naturopath hat on it. Why would you not want to just go out in the sun?
It's inconvenient, Steve.
Yeah.
You could be attacked by wild bears.
Wild bears?
Yeah. There could be, there could be diseases out there.
There could be this.
You know, you could walk out, bam, straight in the face and hit a disease.
But we've got a chronic under-sun deficiency in some areas.
Yeah, but you can fix that with a pill.
Yes, vitamin D, but some of the vitamin D, but not the blood vessel benefits.
I'm being facetious.
I know. I'm just trying to. But you are playing devil's advocate, which is good because there's people listening who may be suffering this and maybe on drugs and might want to look for an alternative. And you can talk to your doctor about
Nature knows best.
Absolutely, it does. And this is a classic one because nature causes this and relieves it.
Yep.
It just depends on the time of year.
Yeah.
So this time of year for our northern hemisphere they got more light than they can poke a stick at. But for Melbourne, Tasmanians, down there, New Zealanders, those sort of southerners, South Africa probably to a degree, they are really suffering. And there's a lot of people with this disease, 2%. Incredible. So get out in the sun and you'll be able to prevent all those other diseases I talked about before. It's great for your health as long as you don't get too much. And that's a caveat. And I'll say it again. Don't go out in the sun and get melanoma, but go out in the sun and protect from those other cancers.
Yep. We need to reevaluate and continuously use the scientific method,
Yes,
Steve.
I love it.
Steve, do you want to explain to people what the scientific method is? Because you know what? It seems like the scientific method has been like, well, this is something that we've used for centuries, if not millennia. Now,
Aristotle was the first sort of purveyor of it, I guess. And it all comes down to
observation.
Yep. It comes down to having a hypothesis.
Yep.
Or even an idea before the hypothesis. And you have an idea that, the sun is good for you.
Yep.
And then you have a hypothesis and you say, I think the sun's good for you because I think it does something for your skin and has an effect like that. And then you can test that. And you can go out in the sun and you can measure things like vitamin D. And you go, vitamin D goes up. That's a good thing. We know that. It's in the literature. So we can say from that the sun produces vitamin D, and that's good for you.
But the juxtapose to that is that spending too much time in the sun creates
skin cancer. So
it's
you
like
do studies
water.
on that.
You can drink water. Everybody understands that you need water for life. But if you consume too much water, you can literally drink yourself to death because you wash out all your electrolytes.
You
can actually kill yourself.
You get heart attack from hyponatremia and hypokalemia or too low sodium potassium.
So it's like anything.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. It's like absolutely everything.
Anyway.
But when people say, you've got to avoid the sun,
And the scientific method, just to come back to that, is a full circle that is consistently replicating itself and consistently going back and retesting hypothesis and what you'd consider to be known truths consistently.
Yeah.
And if it's
never
truth,
settled.
it just keeps tick, tick, tick. And then all of a sudden it's like, hang on, no.
Yeah.
We've actually got new learnings, we've got new understanding, we've got new things, and this is the reason why.
And
but it is consistently evaluated and challenged.
Yeah.
And yes, it might be considered to be a norm and accepted broadly, and that's fine, but there's no reason why people shouldn't be allowed to bring forth ideas and hypotheses which can be challenged against the light of time and truth. Is XYZ bad? XYZ is good. Everyone needs to take XYZ, XYZ, XYZ. Hang on, XYZ bad. Why? Oh, because of this. Asbestos.
Yes.
Best thing since
Classic.
sliced. Thalidomide. This stuff's great.
Yep.
Great. Hang on a minute. We're having some birth defects. Hang on. What's the common denominator? Oh, that's correlation, not causation.
Yep.
Actually, no, it turns out to be causation.
It does.
Right? But this is the scientific method.
Yep. And in astronomy, we're not the center of the universe. Because if you woke up in the 1400s, you looked up, you'd see everything going around you. You go, we're at the middle of everything. It's obvious. There's no ifs or buts. And then you see things going backwards in the sky. The planets going retrograde or wandering through the sky. Planet means wanderer. And so you test it and you figure it out. And then Copernicus comes up with this alternate theory and it blew it out. And then Newton came up and rewrote everything and his laws were fantastic. And then Einstein came along and wrecked everything.
Yep.
Again,
thanks everyone for listening. And that was really interesting.
Interesting.
Remember, question everything.
Absolutely.
If you've got any questions for us, whack them in the comment section below.
I think our next podcast is answering questions, and
well, the next podcast is very interesting. It is on asking for a friend.
Yes.
And it's definitely not for everyone.
It's the only podcast I get nervous in.
I love it, Steve.
Oh.
But R18 only because we aren't. But anyway, Steve, thank you.
No worries.
We'll be back next week.
All right, see ya.
Bye.